subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.
I used to be somebody. Sergeant Frank Delaney, United States Marine Corps. 2 tours in Iraq, 1 in Afghanistan. A chest full of medals, a left leg full of shrapnel, and a spine held together by screws and pride. At Arlington, they buried my brothers. At the VFW bar, they used to buy me drinks just to hear me talk. Now, I sit in this recliner that sags like my memory, watching shadows move across the ceiling like ghosts that forgot where they were going. The clock ticks louder every day. That's the only thing around here that still respects time. 3 years ago, I lived with my daughter in a suburban house just outside Bozeman. Big kitchen. Backyard with a fire pit. Thought I'd spend my final years teaching my grandkids how to whittle or shoot tin cans off a fence. Thought wrong. It happened gradually. First, I started getting in the way. Then, too loud. Then, maybe it's time to consider assisted living, Dad. Then one morning, they loaded me into the back of a van. My granddaughter, Ellie, held my hand. She was 5 then, smelled like peanut butter and crayons. She kissed my cheek and said, "I'll come visit you, Grandpa." That was 867 days ago. I counted. Not one goddamn visit. Not a birthday card. Not even a, "How are you?" from the people I bled for. They left me here. At Hillside Pines, a name that sounds peaceful if you ignore the smell of piss and bleach in the halls. I share a room with a man who thinks I'm his dead brother. Nurses call me Frankie, like I'm a child. One of them took my cane last week because I walk too aggressively. I'm not senile. I'm not sweet. And I'm not done. The worst part of getting old isn't the pain, it's the irrelevance. How the world stops seeing you. How your own children stop seeing you. But I see everything. And I remember. Every word. Every lie. Because I used to be somebody. The day they dropped me off, the sky was the color of old denim, heavy, faded, tired. My son-in-law, Greg, didn't even come inside. Sat behind the wheel like a coward. My daughter, Melissa, walked me to the front desk, holding her phone like it might save her from having to look me in the eye. "They'll take great care of you here, Dad," she said. "There's activities. People your age." "People my age?" I repeated. She didn't hear the acid in my voice. Or maybe she did and didn't care. A nurse in a peach-colored uniform smiled at me like I was already halfway dead. "Welcome to Hillside Pines, Mr. Delaney. I didn't say I was staying." But my bag was already in the hallway. Melissa kissed my cheek, fast, like it burned her, and said she had a Zoom meeting. Then she was gone. Just like that. Like I was a delivery. That night, I sat on the unfamiliar twin bed, staring at my suitcase. Didn't even open it. I just sat. 4 hours. Somewhere, a TV was playing Jeopardy! An old woman screamed down the hall, calling for someone named Michael, who never came. And me? I didn't cry. Not then. But around midnight, I whispered into the dark, "I fought for this country. What the hell am I doing here?" A voice from the other bed answered. "We all asked that, eventually." That was Harold, my roommate. A retired librarian who lost his mind somewhere between a stroke and a heartbreak. He calls me Tom most days. He thinks the nurses are KGB spies. Still, sometimes he's the only person I speak to for days. You know what's funny? The people here. They think I'm just some cranky old bastard with a limp and a war story. They don't know who I was. Don't want to know. Don't ask. To them, I'm a burden with breakfast orders. Another piece of furniture with a blood pressure cuff. Last Christmas, the staff handed out little gift bags. Cheap socks. A plastic candy cane. A coupon for something called Music Therapy with Carl. I threw mine in the trash. Melissa sent me an email that day. Not a call. An email. Hope you're doing okay, Dad. Sorry we couldn't make it up. Kids of basketball. Love you. I stared at that screen for a long time. Then I hit reply. I didn't write anything. Just stared. Then closed the laptop. Sometimes silence is louder than any scream. I stopped trying to reach out after that. I stopped hoping for calls. Stopped dressing for visitors. You learn. You adapt. Like in the field, when no backup's coming, you build your own goddamn defenses. But what they don't know is that while they forgot me, I didn't forget a thing. I remember what Greg said behind closed doors. I remember the bank accounts Melissa took over. And I remember that no one, writes off Frank Delaney. Not yet. They thought I was fading. That's the trick. Letting them think you're disappearing when you're actually watching everything. I started watching everything. Who pocketed the medication carts when no one was looking? Which nurse snuck cigarettes out back near the dumpsters? Which residents cried at night? And which one stared at the ceiling like I did, quiet, broken, waiting? There's something about being invisible that gives you power. No one watches the old man in the corner. No one filters their words when you're in the room. They just talk like you're furniture. So I listened. And waited. One day, Nurse Carla was on the phone behind the front desk. She didn't see me sitting nearby with a blanket over my lap. Her voice was low, hushed, sharp. No, he still hasn't signed the transfer of the VA checks to the daughter's account. We can't move funds unless he's declared incompetent. She was talking about me. Me. So that's how far they went. Melissa wasn't just forgetting me. She was draining me. I had built up a retirement with discipline, pain, and sacrifice. 50 years of service, work, and war. And my own daughter was trying to strip it clean while I rot in a nursing home. I felt the rage rise like it did in combat. But this time, there was no weapon. No mission. No team. Just me. And a mind sharper than they expected. That night, I opened the drawer next to my bed and pulled out the old notebook I kept. Leather-bound. Worn at the edges. I flipped to a clean page and started writing. Dates. Times. Names. Details. Every conversation I overheard. Every piece of evidence. I wrote it down in the same tactical shorthand I used in the field. My handwriting shaky, but the intent was solid as ever. Let them underestimate me. Let them think the old man's just wasting away. This was reconnaissance. This was phase 1. You see, I may not walk like I used to, but I still know how to win a war. And they were about to learn the cost of betrayal. I didn't want revenge, not the way people think. Not blood. Not violence. I wanted something far cleaner. I wanted them to live with the truth. The notebook filled faster than I expected. Turns out betrayal doesn't sleep. Melissa was siphoning my VA benefits. Greg was co-signing documents using a power of attorney I never signed. Hillside Pines? Taking a cut. Some quiet little backroom deal between the administrator and my own daughter. They thought they were smart. They thought I was gone. But I was still here. And I had time. You'd be amazed what you can find with an old laptop and some patience. I called in a favor, the last one I had. His name was Isaac Monroe. Former Marine. Served under me in Fallujah. Now a civil attorney in Missoula. The kind of man who still said, "Sir," even though his suit probably cost more than my pension. I called him. Told him everything. "Jesus, Frank," he said. "You have all this written down?" "Every word," I said. "I just need someone to read it loud enough." He paused. I heard him breathe, slow, heavy. He knew what this was. Knew the kind of war I was walking into. "I'll drive up next weekend," he said. "Don't sign anything until I get there." "And Frank?" "Yeah. I always owed you one." That Friday, Isaac walked through the doors of Hillside Pines like a goddamn storm in a tailored jacket. They didn't see that coming. He brought a portable scanner, copies of every document they tried to hide, and a face like stone. He didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. That weekend, the administrator took a leave of absence. By Tuesday, Melissa's name was removed from all financial control. She called me once. Just once. "Dad, what did you do?" I waited. Let the silence hang. Then I said, "You raised your kids in a house I paid for. You fed them with food I earned. And you left me in a hallway that smells like disinfectant and piss. Dad, you should be grateful, Melissa. I could have gone public. Could have let the papers in. But I didn't." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "And that's what you'll get." I hung up. Blocked her number. Forever. That night, I sat outside on the back porch, breathing cold Montana air like it was the first time in years. A nurse brought me a blanket. She didn't say much. Just looked at me differently. Like I wasn't just some patient anymore. Like I was a man again. And maybe I was. I stopped counting the days. Not because I forgot, but because they didn't matter anymore. What mattered was how I woke up. At first, I used to lie still for hours, staring at the cracks in the ceiling, hoping my heart would just decide to quit quietly in the night. But now I wake up with something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. It started with a mirror. A small one in the shared bathroom. The kind that makes your skin look paler and your regrets bigger. I stared at it longer than I should have. There was a man in there I barely recognized. Not because he looked old. I had made peace with time carving its name into my face, but because he looked like a ghost that was just beginning to remember it used to be alive. The white hair. The loose skin. But the eyes? Those still had something in them. Sharp. Cold. Alive. I shaved. Comb. Clean shirt. Didn't feel like armor anymore. Felt like acknowledgement. "You're still here, Frank." Outside, a few residents were gathered in the sun. 2 women knitting in silence. 1 man drooling into a styrofoam cup. I watched them the way I used to watch foreign streets from a rooftop. Scanning, measuring, calculating. And then it hit me. No one here believes they matter anymore. They've been made to feel invisible. By their families. By the staff. By a society that salutes your service on a bumper sticker and forgets you the moment your hands start to tremble. And the worst part? They started to believe it too. But I hadn't. Not completely. Not yet. So I walked to the rec room. Asked the activities director, a nice enough girl named Brittany with eyes that always looked 10 seconds away from burnout, if I could borrow the whiteboard on Thursday afternoons. She tilted her head. "For what, Mr. Delaney?" I looked her dead in the eye. "A class." "A class?" "Yes. On survival." She blinked. "Survival? Not the jungle kind. Not war zones. I mean the kind where you wake up every day with no calls, no letters, and a name no one says out loud anymore. That kind." Silence. Then she shrugged. "You can have Thursdays at 3, if you want." The first session, it was just me and Harold, my roommate who still sometimes called me Tom. He fell asleep halfway through. Didn't matter. Week 2, 3 more showed up. Evelyn, a retired pianist with fingers that still moved like water even if her joints cracked like old wood. Clarence, who used to teach auto mechanics before his son stuck him here and sold the shop. And Betty, quiet, scared Betty, who hadn't spoken a full sentence since her daughter died. We didn't do much that day. I asked them one question. When was the last time someone asked you to speak? They were quiet. Then Evelyn said, I don't remember. I nodded. That's going to change. By week 4, we called it the Echo Room. Because in here, your voice came back to you. You said something and it mattered. Someone heard it. I told stories. Some about war. Most about the stuff that came after. The kind of battles no one pins medals for. We laughed. We cried once. We swore a little more than Brittany liked. But every single week, someone said something they'd never said before. I used to be a dancer. I held my husband's hand as he died. I haven't had a hug in 3 years. And me? I told them the truth. They tried to erase me. And for a while, I let them. That was the hardest part to admit. That I had cooperated in my own fading. But not anymore. This wasn't revenge. Not the old, bitter kind. This was reconstruction. I was rebuilding myself, brick by brick, voice by voice, memory by memory. And this time, I wasn't alone. A month ago, I was invisible. Now they knock on my door. Not out of pity. Out of respect. They ask for advice. They bring me poems they've written, old songs they've remembered. One man asked me to help him write a letter to his daughter. He hadn't spoken to her in 10 years. Why now? I asked. Because you reminded me I'm still someone, he said. That hit me harder than any bullet I ever took. Last week, Brittany, the activities director, asked if I wanted to give a talk during Family Visit Day. I almost laughed. Family. Mine wouldn't come. Not anymore. Not after what I exposed. They were too ashamed. Too angry. But that wasn't my burden anymore. Still, I said yes. I stood in front of a room full of wheelchairs and paper cups and trembling hands. A few visitors in the back, grandkids on their phones, middle-aged sons glancing at watches, checking how long they had to stay. And I said this. We are not leftovers. We are not broken clocks or rusted tools. We are libraries. And every time one of us dies unheard, a book burns in silence. A murmur went through the room. Some lowered their heads. Others looked straight at me, wide-eyed, like they hadn't heard a voice like that in years. If you're lucky enough to still have a mother or father sitting in a place like this, don't visit out of guilt. Don't smile for 10 minutes and disappear for 6 months. Ask them who they were before you forgot to care. Ask them what it cost to build the world you stand on. The room went quiet. One of the grandsons, a kid in a hoodie with messy hair and earbuds in, actually took them out. Stared at me. Good, I thought. Let it sink in. Because this wasn't just a speech. This was my last mission. The next morning, there was a letter waiting at my door. No name. No return address. Inside, 4 words. You were right. M. Melissa. No apology. No explanations. Just 4 words. And for once, I didn't need more. I sat with it a while. Let it warm something inside me I thought was long gone. But I didn't write back. Forgiveness isn't always a letter. Sometimes it's just letting go without clinging. Last night, I sat outside again under the willow tree. Same bench. Same wind. Evelyn sat beside me, playing something soft on a harmonica. Betty hummed along. Clarence handed me a small card, a homemade badge he drew with crayons. Echo Room Founder, it read. I laughed. First real laugh in years. Felt like the old days. No medals. No orders. Just camaraderie. We didn't need to talk. The silence between us was full, not empty. You want a lesson? Here it is. They only win when you disappear. Not when you wrinkle. Not when you limp. But when you believe you stopped mattering. I matter. We all do. Until the very last breath. Tonight, before I turned off the light, I looked at the mirror again. The man staring back? Not a ghost. Not a victim. Not forgotten. Just Frank Delaney. And that's enough.